Kell,
Here.
Counselor Voorhees,
Here?
Counselor Leahy,
Here.
Mayor Gamba,
Here.
Counselor Davis,
Here.
Counselor Godas.
Here.
And Counselor Trotter.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, is there anyone who would like to speak to us about something that is not on this evening's agenda? Sir, give us your name, address, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes if possible.
My name, let me plug my computer in for a second here.
All right.
Hi, my name's John Stevens. Address is 60 Cardinal Lane, Glenwood Springs, West Glenwood. Mr. Voorhees is my neighbor, for better or worse, as far as he's concerned. He's a great neighbor. I wanted to speak tonight representing the Kiwanis Club. And I have a very brief PowerPoint if things are working. There it is. Several of us met with some of the parks people looking at Brian, Nate, Al, looking at how Kiwanis Club might be able to do a project with the city related to the Parks Department here. They suggested one thing we might want to look at is a proposal that's in the works for Veltus Park shoreline stabilization and reconstruction. That was dear to our heart because, as many as you know, Veltus Park was originally Kiwanis Park. In the mid-1950s, the Kiwanis members took over development and maintenance of an old campground in West Glenwood. They cleaned the area up, they built the picnic tables, the bridge, and the shelters at the park. We actually have a picture here of the club members building this original park shelter. It's behind you on the screen somewhere. I don't know if you guys can see it anywhere else.
Yeah,
The park was originally called Kiwanis Park, and it was renamed Veltus Park in honor of Kiwanis member Bob Veltus, who lost his life saving a girl drowning in the Roaring Fork River near the park. He did save her life, he lost his. The club still plays a major role in the park. In 2010, the club members installed a new shelter roof on the shelter there. And at about the same time, they extended the shelter, putting a shelter over the fire pit attached to it. And in this picture, you can see in the background the old shelter and the new shelter with the new roof on top of them. But the reason I'm here tonight, and the reason I'm going through this, is to show the commitment that Kiwanis has to this park and the service that we are capable of doing when we have the support to do it. What I'm looking at, talking tonight, is about shoreline erosion at the park. As you can see in this slide, there was an unsuccessful attempt, I think, to control the erosion. There was some rocks and some broken bits of concrete and so forth, and you can see that the river had a mind of its own and is eroding a large tree there. And members of the club who've been at the park for years now say there have actually been a number of large trees that have fallen into the river. This is another shot of the fishing pad there, whatever that's called. And you can see in this picture there's a very large Colorado spruce being undermined and not going to last too long if something's not done. If we have another runoff like we had last couple of years, not this year, but a couple of years before, it's quite likely that tree's going to go down. In addition, another shot of that, and you'll see at the end of the railing there, a concrete anchor that used to be buried under the ground is now being held up by the railing. It's totally eroded. Obviously, erosion is occurring there, and something needs to be done to control that. Here's another shot. I just took a few with my phone. You can see some trees there that are being eroded, ready to go into the river. They're not big trees at this point, but some of them down there might be. And in conclusion, Kiwanis is asking the city to include funding in the 2018 budget for shoreline restoration and stabilization of Veltus Park, which we do understand is a priority for the City Parks and Recreation Department and hopefully for the council as well. In return, Glenwood Springs Kiwanis Club is committed to providing workers to support this effort in coordination with the City Parks and Recreation Department. We also understand that the Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers are interested in this, and I have an idea that we should work with the Audubon Society here in the valley to make sure that whatever vegetation is placed in is bird-friendly, native, and will support a vibrant environment there at the park, as well as a place for people to be. Open to questions, if there's any questions.
Any questions for John? Thank you.
Okay.
Just make a quick comment. Thank you,
Yes.
John, for, outstanding citizen volunteership here. It's nice to sit up here and have an individual representing a club saying, we'll pitch in, whatever it takes. I don't know if you said whatever it takes, but let's just assume.
We didn't
you
quite
did.
go that far, but we certainly will do our part. If we can build the shelter and re-roof it and build another shelter and different things, we have a commitment to that park and to the city. With the indulgence of the council, I'd like to switch hats and address another issue.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Did you talk to Brian? You said you talked to Brian.
Yes, I did talk to Brian,
Did you guys
Al,
talk
and
about
Nate,
the-
were the three people in the Parks Department that we talked to.
Okay. Did you guys talk about the local, pulling in the local Audubon Society and for the
We
native
talked about the Roaring
vegetation?
Fork Outdoor Volunteers that, I think it was Al said there, or maybe it was Brian, said that they had made contact with them. They were interested in participating.
Okay.
The Audubon Society is, because I'm a member of that, was kind of my idea, and I haven't addressed that with them yet, but that's something that would do if this moves forward.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Now on your second item.
Okay.
If you could keep that to 3 minutes, that'd be great.
I will keep it under
All right.
3 minutes. Okay, it is, as an avid cyclist, it's wonderful to see all the cycling going around. Walking up the path today, I was passed by 15, 20 cyclists. Fabulous, it's wonderful. In our neighborhood, we now have a lot of people riding up and down Donegan, which is a great thing. But that brings up the concern that I have. I'm seeing people, I think because they're not normally cyclists out there, who are riding dangerously, and particularly in the wrong direction in the marked bike paths. In other words, they're traveling against traffic instead of with traffic. That is actually one of the most dangerous things you can do as a cyclist. That's statistically been shown, riding on the left-hand side against traffic. Drivers simply aren't looking for you coming that direction. They don't have time to react to you. And on a narrow bike path, if somebody's traveling the right direction and you're traveling the wrong direction, somebody's got to get out into the lane of traffic. So it would be a good thing, I think, if the lanes could be clearly marked with arrows, directional arrows. They're not currently marked in any way. I don't think they are anywhere in the city that I've seen. They may be, but anyway, that's something.
It's a line.
It's just a line. But you need to have a directional arrow so that the cyclists know I'm supposed to be going this way, not the other way. Okay? Another thing I'd like to bring up is a number of years ago, 20 years ago, I rode cross country, and one day I was riding in northern Michigan, kind of a dreary morning, and I had one of these on the back of my bike. And can you guys see this? Yeah, it's a good thing. And a truck driver actually talked to me later that day and said, I saw your lights. Thank you for having those on your bike. I could see them about a quarter mile away. So I would suggest, and I'm just throwing this out there, the city would buy a bunch of these, I don't know, 100, 200, and do a festival and give them away. The Valley View Hospital Safety Fair, which includes a bike rodeo, is coming up in September. We give away helmets for free to every child that goes through there. If we gave them one of these to put on the back of their bikes, it would make them much more visible and safer. It really does make a difference. It's a safety issue. This light costs less than $10. They're very inexpensive. and they're easy to put onto the bike. So I'm just throwing that out for the council's consideration. I think it would be a really good thing for the city to do. Okay?
While you're still here, I would like to thank the Kiwanis Club for participating in our bike rack.
Ah.
I think they're gonna
Yeah, we're,
sponsor some of them.
I think we're taking care of 4 of the bike racks for the city. And just so you know, we've also purchased 23 bike racks for the city's schools, and they'll be installed hopefully Labor Day weekend. We're working on that.
All right.
That's
Thank you very much.
fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you,
Yep.
Joe.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak about something not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, I will close that item, and want to point out to everyone that agenda item 14B, which was on our consent agenda, has been pulled from the consent agenda, and it will be considered separately. Are there any council comments? Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, first of all, I'd like to echo Deborah's comments and thank Kiwanis for everything that you guys do. It's great to see service clubs like that, and they definitely make a difference. Regarding, we are now in our detour, and people are, if you've been watching the webcams about the detours through town and lots of information going around. I would like to, if you're not able to ride a bus or bike or walk where you need to go, I would suggest that you also get onto what is called commuterconnect.net, which is a carpool matching service, and they will help you if you are not able to find a correct bus connection, or it doesn't go where you need it to go. We need to be using that a little bit more. The other thing is I'm hearing of some near misses and some things going on the trails. I would just ask that people keep speeds down. We do have a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. That's fast. In congested areas, it needs to be dropped way down. Keep in mind that the pedestrians have the right-of-way on these trails. Stay to the right, and if you are stopped or chatting, move off the trail. But thank you, everybody who is using the trails and who is biking and who is van pooling, and it's beginning to make a difference, I think.
Thanks, Kathy. Any further council comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Kathy and a second by Shelley to approve the consent agenda excluding item 14B. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 14B is ordinance number 16, series of 2017, an ordinance of the City of Lona Springs, Colorado, creating an arts and culture board and setting forth the membership requirements and powers and duties thereof. I believe this is pulled off the consent agendas because Shelley had some additional items you wanted to add to the ordinance, additional
Yes.
language.
And I had sent out some, I think Deborah
I
sent out.
forwarded it to everyone else.
Yeah, did anybody have comments on those? I just wanted to add some whereas statements on the beginning of that ordinance and that resolution so that we could add some, our vision of what the purpose of this board is, to promote arts and culture and a diversity of arts and culture in the community. Did anybody have any comments to add to that? Or
I've read through them, and I think they seem reasonable, myself.
Okay. So I guess with that, Deborah, did you have any comments, or Carl, on adding
No.
those? I don't know if
No.
we have to add all of them, but,
Do you mind if I just read them for the benefit of everyone here, since,
sure.
okay, these are the whereas statements that Shelley is proposing be added to the resolution. Whereas arts and culture are an important foundation of a healthy, vibrant community. Whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of all Glenwood Springs residents and visitors. Whereas the city of Glenwood Springs has a long history of support for the arts and culture within the community. Whereas the city wishes to support the arts and culture of Glenwood Springs. Whereas the city wishes to promote visual arts, public art, incorporation of art into public spaces, culture and performing arts, music and creative industries, and all arts in the community of Glenwood Springs. Whereas the city council seeks recommendations for the advancement of diverse arts and culture for the community. So,
Okay. And I guess I would say, I think, let me see, 1, 2. The fourth one down is kind of redundant, the short, the city wishes to support the arts and culture of Glenwood Springs. I think the one below it just repeats that, so you could use your discretion, but.
Yeah, well, I think that what I heard you just say was, I move to approve the ordinance with the amendment, including all of the whereas clauses proposed, except for the fourth one.
That sounds like a very good move, yes.
all right, we have a motion by Shelley and a second by Todd.
Motion by Shelley via Carl. Yeah.
We have a motion by Shelley and a second by Todd to approve resolution. Ordinance number 16, series of 2017. An ordinance of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, creating an Arts and Culture Board and setting forth the membership requirements and powers and duties thereof, including all of the whereases with the exception of the fourth one on Shelley's list. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right. Moving on, we now have an update from the Garfield County Library.
Councilors, thanks for your time this evening. My name is Jesse Henning. I am the new-ish Executive Director of the Garfield County Libraries. I started back in November, and
I'm Alice Bedard Voorhees, and as of September, I've been on the board for 1 year, and prior to that, had the opportunity to volunteer to the board for several months to also learn about what the responsibilities were involved in joining the board before I said, yeah, let's do it.
And we're here to talk to you about two things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to brag about your local library. I was not here in 2016 when some of these stats are, but I will take credit for all of them if you like. You should all have in your packets, you should have this quick infographic. We just want to talk a little bit about the year that the Glenwood Springs Branch Library had and the year that the Garfield County Libraries have had in 2016. So one stat that I always like to start with that's really exciting for us is that you'll notice that 57,982 is the number of card holders that we have here in the Garfield County Public Library District. The population of Garfield County hovers somewhere around 58,000. So actually, if we look at the number of residents that we have, so there's 55,572 residents that are card holders. That means that 94% of every living person in Garfield County is a library card holder. Probably with 94%, a number of your constituents are also library card holders. So that's something that we're really proud of at our libraries, that folks have really stepped up, that come out, they use us very frequently. You'll also notice that 1 out of every 2 people, that's men, women, and children, and all in between in the county, have come into a Garfield County library and used our services in the last 2 years. If Target had that sort of market penetration, it would be one of the largest companies in the world, full stop. So we're really proud of that here at the Garfield County Libraries. But let's kind of break it down a little bit, looking at Glenwood in particular. You'll see that we had about 173,000 people visit the Glenwood Springs Branch Library. So that means that every single person in Glenwood, on average, visited their library 17 times last year. So that's every single person you know, your neighbor, whether you like them or not, has visited the Glenwood Springs Branch Library 17 times. Just something else we're really proud of. But the one thing that I like to brag about, and it's not something to drag our other county libraries, but you'll notice that on average, every person in Garfield County checks out 11.2 items. That's books, that's DVDs, that's electronic items, that's anything that you can get from your public library. Checked out 11.2 items per year. That is more, and I wrote a list, that is more on average than the libraries in Weld County, in Longmont, in Mesa County, in Gunnison County, in Summit County, and our friends at the Eagle Valley Library District across the way. So folks in Garfield County use their libraries. We have seen big increases over the since 2008, since we started constructing the buildings. We've seen huge increases in the amount of circulation, of visits, and that's something that we in Garfield County and everybody should be proud of. And I wasn't here for that history, but I appreciate the council's support and work in making sure we have that beautiful building across the way. And also on top of that, the partnership that we have with Colorado Mountain College for developing the space on the second floor has been pretty amazing. So we just want to thank you all for the part you played in that. So the second piece we want to talk about is flipping to the back. So we're here, A, to brag about the library, but also to make sure that you all feel like you have the right information when your constituents come to you asking questions about what's going on in the library. The library has been in the news in the last year, and a lot of that has to do with the budget cuts that we've seen from 2016 to 2017 as a result of the decrease in property tax valuation in the oil and gas sector. So from 2016 to 2017, as you may know, the library district saw a $1.2 million decrease in funding. That's a 30% decrease to operating funding. And that's what set off a lot of the cuts that you've seen if you've been into our libraries and if you've been paying attention to that. The cuts that you've seen in our organization, those have to do with cutting open hours, cutting the amount of items that we're able to purchase, cutting the number of programs. We've had to reduce our summer reading program, which just ended. Our summer reading program spending was cut in half. And actually right now we're at a point with our 2017 budget that every single educational program that is put on by the libraries is funded by either the Garfield County Libraries Foundation or a generous donor. We don't have money appropriated out of operating for that because we've had to cut down so far. Another thing, regrettably too, we had to reduce our staff. So we actually had to reduce library staff hours by 25% between 2016 and 2017. That was something that's really, really tough for us, the library district, because time and time again, when we survey our users and we survey folks that come in the library, the number one thing that they're the most supportive of, the most satisfied by, are the efforts of our staff. And so that's why the last year has been very tough for us. But I just wanted to make sure that you all had the information you need if your constituents are asking you questions about what's going on with the library district. You know, why is the library decreasing hours? We just want to open that channel of communication. If ever you have questions, in this session or otherwise, please feel free to reach out to us, the district. We want to be able to answer that question so that you can provide good information to the folks you represent. The other piece I wanted to talk about when we're looking at that, looking at our budget shortfall is that now more than ever, the library district is looking for partnerships. We know, and I'm a Colorado transplant, I'm sorry. I'm from the state of Ohio, but I came out here about a year ago, and I realized that the one thing that really makes the Western Slope thrive and the communities out here in Garfield County is that everybody is open to collaboration. And I noticed that because if we don't collaborate out here, we all are in trouble. And so why I'm mentioning that today is that if ever the city of Glenwood has a project that may align or that aligns with the library's goals. So our mission of the library district is to connect our communities to a world of possibilities. That is a very, very broad mission statement that probably dovetails a lot with what the city is doing. So if you all have projects or if you have ways that you think the library can come in and help or that we can provide information, I say that I'll made it as a library director and we'll have made it as a library district above and beyond what we've already done is when City Hall asks us to answer a question for them. That's what we do as librarians. That's what we do at the library, provide people with information. So we just want to open that channel of communication if there's a project you're working on. If there's somewhere you think that the library can intercede and help, we have a large audience. Even if it comes to something, if there's a big change that you need to communicate out to the public. Again, we saw 173,000 visits last year in Glenwood alone. We're a great conduit to transmit that sort of information. And we really want to have a partnership where it's not just us coming to you asking with our hand out. It's where we're able to work together and be able to support each other and make sure we're not double spending money on the same things.
And to piggyback on what Jesse did say, the role of the board is to support that mission. And part of the role of the board is to support the mission through policy, but also review of operations. And so we've been trained as a board because our main charge is to oversee the fiduciary responsibility of the district. We've been trained by the state as well. But it is a pleasure to be on this board and to work with not only Jesse and the staff of every library, but also they have a terrific staff at the district level. We have a great accountant. We're really pleased with that. But the other part is that what also makes me passionate about being on this board is that I've worked with libraries and volunteered to libraries for many years, but that I really do see how this library sees itself in supporting the dreams and the possibilities of communities by connecting through the various projects. So thank you.
Thank you. I was gonna ask, did you all have any questions or anything we can answer right here? Or?
So what do you consider to be your outstanding collaboration? Or one in the wings or one that you have? I mean, since you've been at the helm, what's new and different?
What's new and different? So I feel that one of our most outstanding collaborations we've had is actually with other libraries statewide across Colorado. One of the things that librarians learned a long time ago was if we don't collaborate, we're also dead. And so we're actually, through our library lending partners, one of the things that's been really great for us is we've had to cut our collection budget down. We buy 50% fewer things than we did from last year. But we have library partners throughout the state that are able to share their collections with us. So while we hold around 150,000 items in all of our branches from Parachute to Carbondale, we have access to 2.2 million items across the state of Colorado. We can have them all delivered to you between 3 and 5 business days. We're nearly as fast as Amazon, and we are much, much cheaper than they are. And so that's one of the collaborations that we feel is really great. Our friends at the Mesa County Library, they've been very gracious with us in lending some of the things we haven't been able to buy because of our budget shortfall. And that's one of the ways that the library community in Colorado has been so great, is that we pool our resources, we share our information, our boards talk to other boards, our boards talk to other foundations. That sort of collaboration there has been really fantastic. One of the ones, though, on the local scale that we're really proud of is our collaboration with, is John still here? John's not here. Is the collaboration with Glenwood Springs Kiwanis. If you've seen the Glenwood Springs Story Walk that we have set up. So the Glenwood Springs Story Walk is something we're really excited about. That's actually out in a park. We have a storybook that's set up and that folks can go through. They can read the storybook with their children. It's on signs throughout the park. It includes a physical activity, and it's also bilingual. So it makes a story more than something you just sit down and read to your kids, but something you do as you're out in the public. We're looking for more sites for Story Walk because we have a number of stories we're looking at. We've had a lot of support from the Glenwood Springs Kiwanis, but that's been one of the projects that's been really cool and innovative because it's the only one of its kind, as far as I know, out here on the Western Slope. Oh yeah, we're actually embarking on a really cool, sorry, when we talk about collaboration, you got me started. We actually have a really cool collaboration that we're looking at with the Colorado Rocky Mountain School in Carbondale, and it's a pilot program. So this is the first time we're ever saying it publicly. But what we're looking at doing is that allowing students at the Colorado Rocky Mountain School to place holds on library items and pick them up at their school. It's something that we're piloting with them because we want to make this go district-wide. We want to make this go county-wide. We want for children to be able to place items on hold, and instead of having to bug their parents to drive them out to the library, that they're able to pick them up at their school, so that we turn every single school into a hold pickup shelf, which is something we're really excited about. But again, it's one of those things that we're piloting, but in terms of scaling it up, is something that's really dependent on what our budget looks like for the next year.
Where is the Story Walk?
The Story Walk, and you're going to challenge my Glenwood geography.
Okay.
It's the park that's behind the Glenwood Springs Mall, and the name of it escapes me. I have the name written down. I
Oh,
should know.
Gregory.
Gregory, thank you. It's Gregory Park.
Okay,
Excuse me.
great.
Yeah, so it's in Gregory Park. As I said, we're looking for more locations. We're looking to expand it countywide because the Gregory Park site really pioneered the workflow for it. So we have all the stuff ready to make another one.
Thanks. Any further questions? All right, thank you guys very
Appreciate your
much.
time. Thank you.
Yep. All right, now we have a presentation by Garfield Clean Energy.
Right, I don't have anything to plug in. I'm just going to highlight some items from the packet, but I hope to answer any questions that you might have about the work with Garfield Clean Energy. And I'll start over. My name is Erica Sparhawk. I'm on the staff at CLEAR, and we manage the contract for Garfield Clean Energy. We have such an audience. Garfield Clean Energy is an energy collaborative. It's made up of 9 governments across Garfield County, includes the county, the 6 municipalities, CMC, and RAFTA. And together, we all pool resources to work on energy efficiency and across residential, commercial, government buildings, renewable energy, and transportation. So in your packet is an update. We provided our report for everything that we accomplished in 2016, and then included kind of benefits or a summary of results in the city of Glenwood Springs since the start of Garfield Clean Energy, which was in 2009 when our program started. And then in the memo, I just have some highlights of some of our kind of exciting projects that we're either are in the works right now, or some of them we have results on already this year to report out on. So Glenwood Springs has been a part of Garfield Clean Energy since it started. I think Shelley was on the board actually at that time and was the Garfield Clean Energy rep. And since that time, you guys have been, as a founding member and a leader on sustainability, because then you, after joining GCE, then started the sustainability program that I was just here a few weeks ago reporting on. So we really appreciate your leadership on that, especially as the county seat. I think it's really important that the city of Glenwood has stepped up in this way. A couple of our highlights is, since 2009, we're getting close to 1,000 homes. Hopefully we'll break that 1,000 homes this year. And that means that those are households that have invested in upgrades to improve efficiency and comfort and frequently safety in their homes. Where over 250 businesses have done projects, and this is across the county. We've also worked with over 280 contractors. This is everything from installing electric vehicle chargers to insulation, weatherization projects in all the communities. And then between projects include lots of big renewable projects across all the governments, CNG stations, and then, of course, energy efficiency on homes and businesses. $23 million has been invested or stimulated across the county. And we're really proud of that amount and think that all of the GCE partners should be proud of being part of that. In 2016, $1.2 million was invested just from that. And our total budget with Garfield Clean Energy varies each year by a little bit, but it's usually right around $300,000. So there's a lot of bang for the buck with what we can do with that funding. What I want to make sure you know about some of the items that we're working on this year. We embarked in a process a year ago, actually, with Excel Energy, and it's called Partners in Energy, and they helped fund an effort to create an energy action plan across the whole county. And even though Excel funded it, included all the utilities in the county, which we have, of course, City of Glenwood, Black Hills Energy, and Excel and Holy Cross. And part of that, which I think based on your board's past interest that you have participated in or asked questions about, is maximizing local renewable energy in the county. And we held a really great workshop, and Mayor Gamba provided some introductory remarks to that one on March 3rd. And then we did a follow-up workshop with Rick Voorhees attended in July that focused on solar. And from that, we have applied for a program, potentially with some grant funding, from NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Lab in Golden. And the program's called the Solar Energy Innovation Network. And it's partnering all of Garfield Clean Energy along with Eagle County, Aspen Utilities, in an effort to develop a really, work plan roadmap going forward for how we can expand solar across the areas. We also made sure to include Glenwood Springs in an application that the City of Lyons and Mean, your utility provider, have submitted to this same effort. And so there's a good chance that Glenwood Springs will be participating in some way or other. That one's really focused on working with Mean to develop rates that don't penalize communities that have folks who want to install solar. So we're really optimistic that we'll maybe hopefully get the City of Glenwood in both of those grant programs. Are there any questions about that, I guess, before I move on? Okay. The other part of Garfield Clean Energy is we have the Garfield Energy Navigator, which is an online tool where we track building energy use for all of the government partners. We track live data and utility bill data It's a great tool for anybody who works on your facilities and for us to help you monitor energy use and energy costs at those buildings. So I just put in a couple of your buildings, and one of them is the community center. We've, as you can see in the chart, the light colors, like the red and the light and the blue. Red is gas, blue is electric. We're seeing about $13,000 in savings over the past 12 months. And your team there has been engaged, making some changes to operations, especially you can see improvements starting pretty dramatically in February. In addition, lighting upgrades were made in 2016, and so we might be seeing some of those here as well. It's a pretty high energy use building, so sometimes one project, like the new lights that went in the gym, might be hard to identify on here because you have the pool, which is a beast of energy user there. Your other largest energy user in the community is the wastewater treatment plant. And I wanted to snap, this is where we use the live data, and this is the prior 30 days of energy use. And it just, we also have daily usage. So when I looked at that, you could tell that it looks like the guys at the wastewater treatment plant are kind of dialing in any peaks and really flattening out the usage compared to last year, which then brings them savings there. Is there any questions about the government building data? I know, it's just so fascinating. What I wanted to highlight for our residential program is our income qualified program. And we've been working on that since 2015. And to participate in this program, you know, we do have Northwest COG, which provides weatherization services. And that's kind of at this layer of income. But there's a gap where if you are 80% of the area median income, you couldn't qualify for their services, but we felt like that we need to make sure those families have options and opportunities. So developed this program with Energy Outreach Colorado. We leverage lots of funding, especially in Glenwood, from Black Hills Energy, covering weatherization, boilers, and furnaces. And Energy Outreach Colorado actually also gives us a grant to work on these programs here. And something I know, you know, in Carbondale, and I know all of us talk about affordable housing all the time. And one of the best ways that we can keep houses affordable is make sure that people can afford the utility bills and stay in the homes that they already are in, if they're in there, or the apartments. So we're really excited about this program, considering all of our communities are working on affordable housing as well. And then finally, transportation, which is right in our face right now. I was thrilled sitting here to hear Jesse from the library and John Stevens, who was up here, and they were talking about where they're at on the leaderboard on the Ride Garfield County Biking Challenge, and I don't think they knew I was associated with it. So it's a really exciting program we've had going on for a couple years, where we have people log their miles and clearly start to get competitive about where they are on how many miles they've cycled. We've partnered with the city this year, especially on some promotions. We had really great turnout at the breakfast stations that we did for the Colorado Work Today and the, you know, another one in May. We extended it through November so we can get people to continue logging their miles. So we're excited about that program. We're looking at maybe a couple even workshops this fall, maybe one on how to ride in the winter or inclement weather, help people just get ready for staying on their bikes. The other program that I'm sure we might have told you about last year, but we successfully implemented this year, is the EV bulk purchase program, and that's electric vehicle bulk purchases. What we did is we issued an RFP and had dealerships respond with what kind of deal they would be willing to provide in exchange for us promoting electric vehicles. It had already happened in Boulder and Aurora in 2016, so we kind of modeled it off of them. But for the first time, they had only ever gotten one dealership to participate, which was Nissan. And we were able to encourage 4 dealerships, and Mountain Chevrolet and Glen Springs Audi are the 2 here in Glenwood that participated. Boulder Nissan also did, along with Loveland BMW. And we just got our results and put together a final report. There was just an article in the paper, but I wanted to highlight that it was Mountain Chevrolet that sold the most vehicles right here in Glenwood, sold them to 16, and I think 11 of those folks came from other counties to buy them here. So another economic generator while also meeting our goals of installing electric vehicle charging stations at the same time as getting more people in electric cars. So we're really proud of that one. And that's really a summary of what we're working on, but I'm happy to go into any other details from the annual report or any questions that you have.
Thanks, Erica.
Yep.
Any questions for Erica about any of their programs? All right, well,
All
thank
right.
you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks, Erica.
Thanks for all your work.
Thanks, it's fun.
All right, next item on the agenda is ordinance number 17, series of 2017, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, repealing and replacing Article 090.010 of the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code, which is essentially related to the operations of the Glenwood Airport.
It is. It's entirely related to the operations of 090, just so you know, is public property. That's a section of the code. Airport obviously is one of the many pieces of property the city owns. The Airport Commission over the last probably 18 months has been working to revamp this section of code, primarily to deal with issues related to cleanup, abandoned vehicles, airplanes, personal property, things like that. My office has been working with them, like I said, over the course of the last 18 months. I think Jonathan can speak to anything as far as the kind of the end of that process, because he was involved in that after joining the council. This is a complete repeal and readoption, so I didn't do a lengthy red line or anything like that, particularly because this has gone through so many iterations. I will confess I can try to answer some questions, but Jonathan may be better on the kind of the policy perspective questions to be able to answer those as to what they're trying to accomplish.
And I would maybe defer to Tanya a bit.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't see, I'm sorry, Tanya, I didn't see you back there. I was like, it's the computer screen. I was like, is she here? I guess I'm gonna just like wing it.
So I was like, I don't know.
Start to stand up when you jumped in. So, yeah, but I think you summarized it well. The main intent of this was to address some issues of abandoned aircraft at the airport and to make sure that there was a legal mechanism for removing them. In the process of looking at the code, the city attorney's office found some other shortcomings or some areas that needed a little bit of addition and clarification. And so we put them all into this code revision and have it before you now for your consideration.
As a follow-up to that, you'll have a resolution on in the next meeting to go along with second reading of this, assuming it gets passed, that has a standard ground lease tie-down agreement that we want to start using out of the airport as well for adoption.
All right, any questions for Tanya or Carl about this? All right, thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item? All right, this is an exciting night. Bring it back to council for discussion and a motion.
Well, I would move to approve ordinance number 17, series of 2017, an ordinance of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, repealing and replacing Article 090.010 of the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Jonathan to approve first reading of ordinance number 17, series of 2017. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, repealing and replacing Article 090.010 of the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call the question. Oh, whoops, sorry.
Oh, I just
Go
had
ahead.
a quick question. In reading through this, this is quite a bit longer than the existing code that it's replacing, and I think that's so that it can define things in detail, as Tanya explained. Is there anything here that would change our function of the airport or ownership of the airport in any future decisions?
No, there's no limitation on your flexibility as a property owner. This is strictly regulating
Operations
use,
and- right.
at this point, right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions or discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right, next item is continued from our July 26, 2017 special meeting, and it's in regard to the Art Center contract and lease agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, back in July, we had a special meeting, had a lengthy discussion regarding the arts, Glenwood Springs Arts Council and the city's relationship to that in light of a variety of information that came out regarding the management of that organization and what had happened to some public funds. And where we would go from there. That item was then heard again at a regular meeting and continued on again to allow Mr. Woolman and I to have some negotiation and discussion. After the last meeting, the council gave me direction and some specific settlement authority to go forward and try to arrive at a conclusion to this, to kind of this impasse. We received a counter proposal a couple of days ago. We went over that earlier today in executive session. I would say the parties are in significantly different places, and that counter proposal was effectively a rejection of your offer. At this point, I really, from a staff perspective, I need clear direction on where you want to go with this relationship. I don't know that there's a lot of necessity for additional public comment. You guys need to tell us what you want us to do and what our marching orders are going forward. And that's really what I'm looking for this evening.
All right, thanks. So what is our council's thoughts in this regard?
I guess I want to be a little bit careful because a lot of what we've discussed has been offers back and forth in executive session, and I'm not real comfortable with a lot of those discussions being out in the public. So.
And we were specifically asked not to share the counter proposal in a public setting, and that's perfectly normal and acceptable. Nothing unusual about that.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add to the discussion tonight, at least not the public discussion, so I don't think I have a whole lot to add.
Shelley?
I would just like to say that for the benefit of, I think there are a lot of people here for this subject. And again, I'd like to reiterate, this has been a really tough situation for everyone involved. I think the city has generously stepped up to help keep fall programs going and, help with the students and the teachers that have been, for lack of a better word, victims in all of this. But as Carl mentioned, we are at odds on the decision on how to move forward, and I think the city has made generous offers. What the response back has not really been acceptable. So at this point, I think it's time for the city to make a decision and just move forward at this point. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Shelley. Kathy?
I would agree, this has been an agonizing period of time for both the Arts Center and for council in trying to figure out exactly the best way to move forward with this. And, at this point, I think it's time to move forward. And so with that, with the mayor's permission, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion on this one.
Sure, go ahead.
In the matter of the Glenwood Springs Arts Council, I move that the city is authorized to pay an amount not to exceed $20,652 directly to former teachers of the Glenwood Springs Arts Council if within 7 days the Arts Council voluntarily and unconditionally terminates the public arts contract and the Arts Center lease. In the event that the Glenwood Springs Arts Council chooses not to voluntarily and unconditionally terminate the public arts contract and the Arts Center lease within 7 days, then the city manager and the city attorney are directed to take further and necessary actions to terminate the public arts contract, and the city attorney is directed to take such legal action as is necessary against the Glenwood Springs Arts Council, and if appropriate, individual board members to collect misappropriated public funds. And the city manager is directed to strictly enforce the terms and conditions of the Arts Center lease, and to notify the Glenwood Springs Arts Council that there will be no renewal of the Arts Center lease when it expires in 2019. And that the city manager is directed to increase arts and dance programming at the community center or other such facilities as may be appropriate.
All
I
right.
second the motion.
We have a motion by Kathy and a second by Shelley. The motion is to effect, I'm not going to repeat the whole thing, but it is to effectively provide an offer to the Arts Center, and if that offer is rejected within 7 days, then we're directing city staff to take the actions stated. Any further comments or discussions? Jonathan?
Yeah, I'll be voting no on this motion, but it's not, it's only because I don't feel comfortable with the city playing a role in mediating or bailing out employers and getting involved in employee-employer relationships. I think that just puts a big sign on the city's back that says, please, if something goes wrong in your business or nonprofit, we're potentially able to help you out. So that's why I'll be voting no on this.
Thanks, Jonathan. Shelley?
And I'd just like to say, I know this motion that we're making right now sounds somewhat harsh, but I think we have attempted back and forth to be able to move forward. We have, I guess, somewhat expected the Arts Council to take some responsibility for what took place here, and certainly the fiduciary responsibility. There are funds that are unaccounted for, and I think the city is making a very generous offer here, and really wants to work in the interest of the public and the community to keep the programs going in the best way possible. This is what we see as the best way to do that. So I'll be supporting this motion.
Thanks, Shelley. Rick?
Yeah, I don't look on this as a punishment for anybody. I look on it as a way forward. I look on it as a way to put things back together and to move in a cooperative spirit towards creating a first-class culture for arts in the community. It's tough. I know many of you, and I know that, you'll feel disadvantaged by this, but I really encourage you to look at what can be done with the new Arts and Culture Board, and would, invite you to participate in that board. So it isn't over by any long stretch. I agree the city, doesn't have a large portfolio in arts programming, and some of you do, and I would hope that you would join us in putting this back together in a way that works for everybody in Glenwood.
Thanks, Rick. Kathy?
Oh, just one other comment. And Shelley, you kind of said that, what I was going to say, but I will just emphasize again that the board, one of the primary responsibilities of a board of directors is fiduciary responsibility. And this board failed in that area. So it's not a punishment, this is just a fact that we need to, we are holders of the public trust, and we need to make sure that we try and recover the funds that we have, and figure out what happened to those funds, so.
All right. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
Trotter, yes. Goder, no. Davis, yes. Stanley, yes. Leahy, yes. Voorhees, yes. Count, yes. The motion
Thank you. Moving on, next item is Miller Realty Tax Rebate Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We're moving on our agenda. There's, public comment was taken at the prior meeting on this item. So,
All right. What you have in front of you is a proposed tax rebate and incentive program. Miller Realty, who owns the Glenwood Meadows development, primarily with the exception of Target and Lowe's, is working to get tenants into the Sports Authority facility. One of the things that has changed in the retail market is that those large format stores, really that's more space than most retailers need. It's going to require a fair amount of improvements, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3 million worth of improvements to redo the facade, some of the public areas. They are proposing, and we've been working towards an agreement that would work for the city if it works for the council, to share in new sales tax dollars generated by that square footage, split at 50-50 over a base amount of what would be about $309,000, and this is coming out of the square footage that is would be the current Vitamin Cottage, and then the Sports Authority, current Sports Authority building, but it is proposed that it would be split in half. While I can't identify specific retailers, there are letters of intent and or leases for those spaces. I can say that one of them would be a soft goods retailer, and another one would be in kind of that suburban sports type of sales. Both things that the community could use and we have a lack of at the moment. This is a very kind of this is kind of an agreement that has been used across the state of Colorado on a fairly regular basis. We do something similar. It's codified in the code in terms of economic incentives for retailers to be able to recoup costs of electric extensions, water and sewer tap fees, those kinds of things as an economic incentive. So I view it really as another tool in your tool bag to potentially help redevelop retail spaces or commercial spaces. I think this may be a model, if you're inclined to go with it, it's a model that we might be able to use in other locations for other retailers. It's certainly not unique to Miller Realty. It would be something that we could use in the downtown area potentially. It's something that maybe we want to use out at the West Glenwood Mall. The idea being that if somebody's willing to come in and invest, that you sort of share in those rewards a little bit to encourage that level of investment. I will tell you, on the private side, working on these kinds of issues, it is getting harder and harder to do brick and mortar retail, to bring new businesses in or to get existing businesses to redevelop and expand or revitalize their storefronts. So it may be, like I said, I think it's a tool that we can use in our tool bag, especially for redevelopment, that might be very helpful. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. A couple of things about this. It's a maximum recovery of $975,000 or 7 years, whichever comes first. Current projections are that would roll through in 5. Historically speaking, Glenwood Meadows has always overperformed, and historically speaking, Miller has always been very conservative in their estimates. I think that's why they're one of the few of these guys that are still around and kind of survived the late 2000s. They do a good job of not overreaching. The idea being is that they have to fully pay in the taxes on a quarterly basis before they can get a rebate. There's a true-up at the end of the year before that final quarterly rebate would be made. We've worked through it with the finance department. They're comfortable with that format and the timing that is laid out in the agreement. There again, if council is comfortable with it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Any questions for Carl? There's a lot of questions for Carl. Todd?
I don't have any questions, so whenever, I guess I just have some comments, so if
Okay.
there's questions, I'll wait.
All right, Shelley.
I just had questions more for kind of clarification for
Sure.
myself and the public, but it looks like in reading through it, so the tax rebate amount is only a cost-sharing kind of, or a 50-50 split on the taxes above that base amount.
Exactly.
It is already
So it's
coming through
essentially on new dollars from that identified square footage.
from that
So what
space.
we base that on last year's closing year sales taxes generated from that square footage. So
Right.
Sports Authority that building's essentially producing zero right now.
Right.
So,
Okay, and it sounds like if they have a year in that new space where they don't get above that,
then there's no rebate.
309,000, then there's
right.
none, and that would possibly carry over for a year?
No,
or-
that
but
would just mean that
doesn't
they'd be
carry-
behind.
They just don't get it?
They just don't get anything in that quarter or that year that they don't perform at that level.
Okay,
The city would always receive that 309,000 on an annualized basis as the base amount, so we're only talking about any increment over that. Like I said, if they underperform, if the economy tanks, and we're not seeing 309,000 out of that square footage, the city would be getting all of there would be no sharing.
right. And in a case like that, let's say if we got through the 7 years and they hadn't reached that
Then they're
total
just,
amount,
it,
it would end at the 7
it's the end
years.
at the end of the 7 years. So
Okay.
there's no, I mean, they might ask you for an extension, but as the agreement is written, it just terminates at 7 years, whether that 975 has been reached or not.
Okay, thanks.
Kathy?
Carl, do you think that would this proposal, or would these businesses not have chosen or elected to fill that space had this not?
That's always a tough one, but my answer would probably be yes. And more than likely, what it would be is it would not be on the time frame of getting somebody in there sooner rather than later. That's a little bit of what this is about, is encouraging that redevelopment sooner rather than later. And to that point, if there isn't new retail in those spaces by March 1, 2019, then this agreement terminates. It doesn't just hang out there indefinitely until somebody opens. They have to open a store, new retail, by March 1st, 2019.
And why that timeframe? Why?
It's actually just a construction timeframe.
Okay.
They're gonna have to go through to redo the facade of the Sports Authority building. Requires a major development permit underneath the annexation and development agreement out of Glenwood Meadows. If this falls into place and their leases fall into place, they start drawing, they're ready to go to maybe apply in November. Figure our process is about 4 months right now to get through that. By the time you crank through Planning Commission and City Council. So we're thinking that one of those retailers may be in by next spring, late spring, early summer. But that's really based on construction and just timing.
Okay.
So that was, the other thing is that October, so most retailers either want to open in October or March. They don't want to open like the first of the year or over the holidays, because they want to either be ahead of it or after it. And so the October date, October 2018 was a little soon, just on that construction schedule potentially. So that's why we went with the March 1. But it really just has to do with how national retailers, when they open their stores.
And you mentioned that this is, and correct me if I heard you incorrectly, is this similar to other incentives that we have
We do.
currently
We have
offered?
done similar incentives for businesses for water and tap fees, electric extensions that you can recoup over a period of, I think it was a period of 5 years. Same idea. You can get a rebate at the end of the year for percentages of your sales tax dollars. There again, trying to get that redevelopment going. This opens it up that it's being used for things other than those. It's more of a classic redevelopment, not new development kind of a scenario.
Okay, I guess my only concern is, you mentioned the brick and mortar. It's becoming more difficult to incentivize brick and mortar development. And, right now, my concern is that we're already losing sales tax revenue to online well, to Amazon and to all those other guys. And that, you know, if we, it's a balance. It really is a balance, because if we continue to lose that revenue, and now we're discounting the sales tax revenue that we could possibly get, you know, I guess I would just urge us to have some caution in as we move these kinds of things forward, and not necessarily, you know, I know you said it could be a model, but I think we need to take each one as an absolute.
Without question, I wouldn't suggest that you just kind of plug it in and say, you know, I mean, I think it really is, what are you targeting, where are you trying to get the redevelopment, what do you want to see, you know, where do you want to see, and what type of retailers potentially that you do want to see?
Well, and I think the type is a critical piece of that too, so.
Right.
So, yeah, that's my comment, questions.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I had a similar thought in that if we're using this as a model, I think it's important for us to evaluate in future instances, are we, you know, perhaps a pad like this might be increasing its sales tax revenue, but perhaps at the expense of another store similar across town. And so we need to take that into consideration. I think in this situation, I think you indicated they're unique type retailer types that we don't necessarily have in Glenwood. And
Right.
so we're not going to be losing revenue over here and just shifting it. I guess.
Right, absolutely, and you know, from my standpoint, when I look at these and when I talk to a developer about these kinds of deals, that's a lot of it, is that, you know, do we have clearly identified needs in the community that we'd like to meet? That makes it a lot more interesting to do this kind of a deal if they are going to meet those kinds of needs than if they are not.
Right.
You know, if it's just it's to move Walmart from one side of town to the other, that doesn't, you know, that's not new, or meeting a new need in the
Right.
community.
Right. All right, any further questions before I open it up to, for public comment?
In the future, do we not have the services of a consultant that's going to look at the retail environment here? Is that a downtown thing, or would that include West Glenwood Mall? And
I
maybe
think if you're
big
talking a
box
little
stores?
bit, the area-wide will look a little bit at uses, I think.
Yeah.
And we may have, in terms of the redevelopment of the confluence, I think we're trying to find the right people to help give us guidance on what's gonna work there. These large-scale retail is a little bit different in terms of, you know, we have this area, we have the old Glenwood Mall, we've got the redevelopment of 6 and 24. Those are different than, say, the redevelopment of downtown, and have different needs, certainly, and target different audiences more than anything.
Thank you.
All right, any further council comments? Is there anyone, there's no one here from the public, would any city staff members or any journalists like to comment on this? I don't know.
It's like their only thing they cared about was already discussed.
Yeah, I guess so. So, seeing no public comment, I will bring it back to council for discussion or motion. I think you want to make.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, because today, 10 hours ago, U.S. News and World Report reported that Walmart, the world's largest retailer, said on Thursday that online sales soared 60% in the last 3 months as more people shopped at walmart.com instead of their brick and mortar stores. So that's what we're up against. I mean, we are, and then you throw us out here in western Colorado in a town of just under 10,000 people, and we're in a challenging environment to attract retail stores to the magnitude of what can go in these types of stores out at the shopping out at the Meadows. You don't get tourists coming up from Denver to go shop at the Meadows. They have all these stores down there. They come to our downtown. So just remember, when we start talking about our downtown, it's important that we continue to drive people downtown for other reasons. I mean, if you don't create a downtown and you don't revitalize our downtown in a manner that somebody wants to come to, then why come up here? So I just want to throw that out, because we've been talking about that for the whole time I've been on council. And the downtown is kind of like our mall. It's our special mall. It's our historical mall. You know, it's nothing like what we have out at the Meadows. I mean, the Meadows is not attracting people that are coming up for the experience of being in Glenwood. At least I don't think. I would hope that the people from the city have these stores out there in their own towns, and they're not coming here to buy lumber or toilet paper at Target. So anyway, keep that in mind when we start discussing our downtown.
Thanks.
Can I just, sorry.
Shelley and then Kathy.
Oh, I was just going to agree with what Todd said here. You know, I would like to think that people don't necessarily come up to Denver from Glenwood from Denver to shop. I'm sure some of them do, and it's great, or it would certainly not at the Meadows, because like you said, they have the stores down there. It's typical kind of strip mall type thing that they have there. But we need those kind of stores up here because, again, to be able to get a lot of those goods, it is nice to be able to just go and have hands-on. So, but I would like to think people come to our downtown more for an experience. And,
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. That's
So,
kind of my point.
creating
I didn't
that
make it real well
experience,
tonight
yeah.
'cause I'm a little tired.
And having our fine dining and
Yeah.
the great locally owned stores that we have downtown
I
creates
agree.
a different kind of experience. for them.
That's
So,
the
yeah,
point
I
I was
totally
trying to
agree on
make.
that.
I was
Yeah.
just a little tired.
But I think to do this with the type of retail and tax numbers that these kind of stores can bring to our tax base is helpful. So if we can target that kind of incentive, I think it's a useful thing.
It's amazing as the generation blows. They don't really care if they touch it or not. They just, I mean, I get stuff all the time on my doorstep. I'm like, what is this? And my son ordered it. And he's, it's like, what? We just go buy it. He
They
goes,
don't
"I
like
just-"
it, they'll send it back.
Yeah, they just ship it back. We all like to touch it, feel it, see it. But the younger
It's very
generation
true.
doesn't.
It's very true.
Do it that way.
Okay, Kathy.
Well, I would agree with you, you know, that we need to attract exactly the kind of businesses we want to attract. They need to be authentic. We need to provide people what they are looking for. My concern is I don't want to give away the farm for businesses that would say, I'll do this anyway. So, you know, that's why I think we have to be very, very careful in how we do this, because we're going to be facing a couple of kind of tough years, I think. Based, you know, just trying to recover from the hit that we're taking with the bridge, so just my thoughts.
Okay, at this point, I would entertain a motion, if anyone is so inclined.
I would move that we approve ordinance number,
That's an agreement, actually.
agreement?
Yeah, it's the,
Enhanced sales tax
tax-
incentive agreement. So
Okay.
you're moving to authorize the mayor to sign, is that generally?
Yes, moving to approve and authorize the mayor to execute
Let me get to the motion, sorry, just a minute.
the enhanced sales tax incentive agreement.
So, okay, so also move, is there a motion in there?
There's not really.
Okay. Move to authorize the mayor to sign the enhanced sales tax incentive agreement between the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado and WMG Meadows LLC.
Second that?
Okay, is there any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right, moving on, we now have our report from city manager.
have a lot. I just wanted to let you know that we're going to be planning a variety of, I think, small, nice things to do for public safety employees and streets employees and
2 weeks in
because-
Tahiti?
no, small. So, if you want to be involved in that, let me know. I think it's just kind of, they've taken a brunt. Really, all staff is kind of tired, but, they're on the road directing traffic or fighting traffic to get people to the hospital right now, so.
Right. And they are doing a fantastic job.
They are.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to be involved. We can
Yeah.
get invites to
Yeah,
that.
whatever we need to do.
That's all I got. I feel like I'm updating you guys like every 2 hours at the moment, so.
Sounds good. Anything from the city attorney?
Well, it's sort of dependent on how long you guys are gonna take on your reports.
Oh, 2-3 hours tops.
4 hours. No, I don't have anything this
Okay.
evening. Thank you.
To my knowledge, I don't think we have any correspondence to go through, so I don't think that's an issue. I'm assuming that everything I received, everyone else has received copies of as well, so I won't be going through that. All right, council reports on boards, committee, and commission meetings. We didn't get this done at the last meeting because we're under a time constraint. Anyone want to jump in
Oh,
there?
yeah, I pressed my yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, no, hold on, I
It's
didn't.
not where
No,
other goes.
you-
I
Yeah, so
think
you
I
voted?
voted. I voted yes to say.
That's my fault.
All right, all right.
Yeah, the airport commission met this morning, and there is a aviation expo. You've probably seen the well-designed flyers around town. There's a quarter-page ad in the newspaper, I think Wednesday and Friday, today and last Friday. Starts from at 8 o'clock, goes till 2. There'll be free airplane rides. A lot of the local pilots are offering those, take people on little mini tours. There's a 5K race. So if anybody's able to come, 8 a.m. at the airport. Try to ride your bike because there's not a lot of parking.
Do you remember when they're gonna do helicopter rides?
I don't believe so. I just believe it's airplanes. Helicopters are really
I
expensive.
guess they're gonna have a couple helicopters out there that are pretty cool.
Yes.
Where they, I don't know if they do repairs on them out here, effective repairs in there or what, but they said they're gonna have a couple out there that were pretty neat. I get to go sit in them or something, pretend.
Yeah. I don't think they're taking helicopters on,
Okay.
but I could be mistaken.
I was gonna try and go to that, sounds actually pretty neat. You want me to go?
Huh?
Go, Shelley?
Oh, I can go. I just have a short one. I attended the River Commission, but I'll let Steve talk about that and the cleanup. And I also attended the Rail Board meeting on Monday morning. They approved an item on one of the cases, was approved for payment. There's a balance of approximately $76,000 in rail fund. And then they had another application that we had to continue because there wasn't a quorum for that particular item, so that was it.
You can take River.
Oh, you can take it. It was a good meeting, but I don't have that great.
Oh, I'm
notes.
sure it was a good meeting, and I think we talked mainly about river cleanup. It was just final plans for that, and
Mhm.
and then there was a pretty well-attended river cleanup. We gathered a lot of garbage.
Yes,
Didn't we talk
very
about
well
that
attended.
2 weeks ago?
No, because we skipped.
We didn't have time.
Right.
Yeah, it was a great day, good music, good food.
Lot of trash.
Free
picked
beer.
up, 2 dumpster fulls,
Yeah,
big cleanup.
pulled out batteries and shopping carts, and I think
Sleeping
shopping cart
bags, pillows.
won the
lots of-
prize for,
The shopping cart won a prize, yeah.
yeah.
It's a good cleanup day, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There was a, well,
I have to say though, I was surprised, we cleaned up a whole section along the Colorado and There's been a lot of work with the fishermen and education on that side, and I don't think we found one lot of fishing line, which I thought was excellent. So you used to see it down there quite a bit.
Yeah, I think the majority of the trash concentration was right below the kayak park.
Oh.
I missed DDA.
Yeah, I went.
Okay, good.
So the.
From the,
Oh,
you
go
can do
ahead.
it. No,
No,
it's your time.
Were you gonna do DDA?
I was.
Just go for it.
Essentially, they talked about wanting to talk with you guys about their priorities, and we're gonna try to set that up. We were looking at the first meeting in September, but Steve, you were gone.
Gone.
And Leslie has asked if we can have a meeting when you are there. It can't be the 21st, it can't be the second meeting in September, because it's already really, really booked with boring items.
Major developments.
So, not really boring items, the municipal, the update to the code. SGA is gonna come into town and talk about the area-wide, and I think also the building code update, that one. So I thought that would be too much to try to also talk to the DDA. So Leslie's requested that we do maybe a special meeting,
I'd
if
say
you
we're-
guys are okay with that.
Otherwise, it's gonna get too late in the year for.
It's too late to do it in October.
Yeah, so it's gonna have to be in September.
So it's the 14th of September?
She was going to look and see if the 28th, maybe?
28th of September?
Yeah, the fourth
It's even
Thursday?
getting late, no?
28th, that's the housing.
Oh, okay.
Is it such that we should maybe try to plan a special meeting?
Yeah, that was,
That's what she said.
So our-
yeah.
I'd
If
get
you
it
guys are
early.
okay with the idea of a special meeting for this,
Sarah
Day,
Mayor, I
evening.
apologize that I have not missed a council meeting in over a year, and, but I won't be able to make it to that.
it just,
The
as long
first
as you guys
meeting
are
is
agreeable to it, I'll have Olivia
Try not to
set
stack
it
the
up.
deck on me.
I can't imagine why you're looking at me, Councilor Davis.
That was the date Leslie threw out me, because I said a Thursday, but she has to check with her board. But, you know, if you guys are agreeable, which it sounds like you are, we'll make something work.
It's an important
Yeah.
item to discuss.
And I'll see if I can fit it on the second meeting. I just know there's only so much time during the day in those.
And the second meeting in September, I'm trying to make it back for the evening council meeting, but I am flying in that day to Denver, so.
We'll see what we can get arranged. But that was essentially,
That was the main thing, is
Yeah.
that priority session, since we had the new council members that haven't had a priority session with the DDA, and so I think that's just real important for this council now to get together with those folks and make sure we're all on the same page.
yeah, and they're honestly concerned because none of the projects they're working on ended up in the top 10 of your priority list. So,
I guess just in that regard, I think it's important to understand that priority list was absent kind of three, or that priority meeting where we discussed priorities is absent three critical pieces of information which we were specifically instructed to kind of not talk about, but will ultimately have a huge impact on our decisions for budgeting. And one is time critical, you know, how time critical are projects. One is, do we have funding available? And one is, do we have leverage for the funding? And I suspect that just because something made our, I guess what I want to caution staff in thinking is that just because something made our top 10 isn't necessarily mean we're going to fund it in 2018.
I perfectly understand
Okay.
that,
All right, so.
considering one of them was a $45 million project.
Well, I was thinking we were just gonna like, you know, fund that one right away, so. yeah.
Wasn't in everybody's top 10?
And that's why
Yeah.
I never had a top 10, it was always the top 25.
Yeah, but that wasn't, those were not the rules, Steve.
You did your whole thing backwards, so.
All right, so let me try and use our buttons here. Kathy?
Boy, it's been so long,
I know.
What meetings we went to. I will say, I didn't get to the rural fire district meeting. Jonathan did the last one, he said it lasted about 4 minutes, so.
40.
but-
40.
40.
40, yes.
Oh. Sorry. Anyway, that was for the, I was at the July one, and just that, Steve was there and presented, some budget, information to that group, and that was good. And the district is, they're up, at least in July, they were up about 6.5% in number of calls, so anyway, they're keeping busy.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Sorry. I guess there was something said in that 40 minutes. I just think we all need to be put on, or we need to have a work session or some kind of awareness that the fire district will be needing to go for an extension of their tax thing. So just keep that on before.
And that's in 2018, is that when that would come up?
Spring of 2018.
Okay.
And then they do have an agreement because the call volume to Hanging Lake is never abating and increasing as use increases. And, that's not a surprise to many people, but they worked out an agreement with Gypsum Fire Protection during the bridge close to respond to those.
Good.
That's all. Sorry.
Okay.
No, that's great. And the only other thing I wanted to say is, Steve has been working really, really closely with the Financial Advisory Board and has done some presentations to the board that have been really, really helpful in helping the board members understand, how the funds work, and it's been extremely useful. Just keep in mind that we are moving into a pretty intensive budget cycle right now, and as much as we can get you guys involved in whatever meetings we end up having, so just know that that's coming, and
Good. I'm hopeful that we will be getting that same presentation, perhaps? Is that possible?
Whatever you say, man.
I would personally like it. I need budgeting for dummies 101, and then I might be up to the dummy level. So.
I was struck by what the library people said about fiduciary training for the board. It makes you wonder just how applicable that could be, or how good that would be for a lot of our nonprofits to sit through a couple of hours of that. And Steve, it sounds like you've already got it down on a 3x5 card. So
more like 8 by 11.
I don't know if I'm ready to lend my finance director to every nonprofit in the city.
No, I think he's got his hands full with what's going on here.
What about for-profits?
Depends how much they pay.
Revenue.
All right. Jonathan.
I forgot, see Tiger Woods, I'm sorry, Brian back there. I reminded him we had a rec commission meeting a couple nights ago. And I think the big thing, well, we talked about strategic planning and how that needs to happen with regards to all the city assets, trails, buildings, parks. But I think the thing that I remember about that conversation, and I said I'd take this back to council, was there's several members of the commission, and it got started on, we were talking about trails, about the homeless encampments up, yes, thank you. And just how, one of the board, commission members said, he will not let his daughter hike on that trail. Another member who's a youth representative says that he sits there on his porch and 5, 6 o'clock, sees the trail people go up there. I know this isn't news to anybody. I know we've seen the pictures that come up on my thing every time I log into the Dropbox. And I don't, I think we can get wrapped around the wheel of how do we solve homelessness forever in this community, but, because I know we started off in that conversation, but I think at a minimum, we need to have a conversation on how do we make our citizens feel safe on trails and areas that either we control or that we have influence over, because the answer of, well, we can't do anything, it's BLM land. We do stuff with Forest Service land, we do stuff, we have intergovernment agreements, so I just, I want to bring this up as a point of conversation in the future of just from allowing normal, non-paranoid, delusional people who are citizens to feel good and safe walking on trails and around trailheads, I think should be a high priority.
And I think the police department has been working with other agencies to try to clear out camps carefully, because I've worked in cities that have taken a very, very strong stance on homelessness, and they lose.
Right, I think it needs to be done with a lot of stakeholders involved, but I do think it's an important conversation to have, so maybe, I don't know when's the best time. We've got a lot on our plates right now, but.
Yeah, I would not want to bring in the police chief currently to talk about.
When we reach a point where we can feel like we can give it the attention it needs, then.
But there are no easy answers.
And then, I think that was after a half hour of going on, and we all realize that, but the safety issue is just something that I was not fully aware of until I heard somebody say, I will not let my daughter walk on that trail. And that made me think, geez, should I not let my wife walk on that trail? So, anyhow, that's all for me.
Rick?
Yeah, just quick, went to the Colorado Basin Roundtable Integrated Water Management Planning Framework Project this afternoon. Yeah, that's a lot. A lot of syllables, but they're working on something really neat. They've got this GIS system that they're building for the Colorado Basin. And so you can look at any stream, any tributary of the river itself, and plot out almost in real time what the levels of pollutants are, what the levels of minerals are, what's in the water. And it could be something that would be of, I think, interest to the city as we think about, our water coming down the Roaring Fork or coming down to Colorado, and stream flows, optimal flows, and then the difference sort of between the flow that is basically provided by riparian rights or prior appropriation versus what the flow really is and where that excess water is coming from. So it'd be just a good planning tool, and Mike, I know you talk about getting that kind of data, and that'll be available to us in beta form here within, I don't know, maybe a couple months.
Okay, good.
Nice.
All right. I attended the RAFTA meeting, and actually, so did all of you. So I don't have to tell you anything about what happened there. You all got to experience it live and raw as it was.
But I would like to thank the RAFTA boards that voted for allowing e-bikes, so.
I
Right.
would too, and I'd also like to thank the 3 members other than us on the RAFTA board who voted to not ban them. So, yes. All right.
Dan has an e-bike.
What's that?
Dan
Dan.
has an e-bike,
Yep.
but he's riding.
He went past me the other day. I was coming back from Alpine Bank on the trail, and he went past me the other direction, and so, yeah, I saw it.
He seems to be enjoying it a lot. He's using it a lot to get around so he can check on his personnel and
Oh, great.
operations in the city. I mean, he's heavily using it, so it's very cool.
Yes.
Yesterday, I had to go out to West Glenwood twice for work. I got out there to the job site literally as fast as I could have driven a vehicle there under normal circumstances with the Grand Avenue Bridge open. And I had to go south of town, same thing. So, I don't know. I may be considering purchasing one when our lease of these bikes is over, because it's actually a pretty convenient way to get around town. Yeah.
Great.
So, Any further reports on anything? No. Okay, we are adjourned.